This house is full of madness. This house is full of fire. With my keeper eye. With my keeper eye.
I'm Jay.
I'm Tom.
And we are Velocities in Music, VIMTV. Today we're going to do episode 350, Tom. Holy crap. Tree Bitty.
I need about 350.
I need about Tree Bitty. Tree Bitty, Velocities in Music. This was a written request by a guy named Ian, who is an avid follower of Velocities in Music. I might be speaking for you, Ian. I'm sorry. It's not Ian Barker, who is our blog guy, and he does written reviews and runs our blog over at vimtv.tumblr.com. It is not him. This is an Ian, a different Ian. There's lots of guys named Ian. This is Kate Bush's 1982 album, The Dreaming. Ian wrote us a really good written request, and we like to promote this at least one episode out of every set. If you write us a really good written request outlining an album that you have identified that you think we would either like or dislike or just want to hear our opinion on, tell us why you want us to review it, what you think your opinion is on it, and what you think it brings to the general music community or music in general. And do that, and maybe kind of, I don't want to say an essay, that sounds so formal because we don't really care about grammar or sentence structure or anything like that, but really it kind of comes down to, is this something that we can take to our fans and followers, and will it bring you guys value? Will you like it and get something out of it? We thought that The Dreaming is a great, we've heard of Kate Bush, but I'm not very familiar with Kate Bush. I don't know about you.
Not too much.
And she has a new album coming out very soon, and which will be on our next voting too, so this is kind of a good precursor into the Kate Bush, discography. So The Dreaming, 1982. Tom, what was your thoughts?
I like this album. It took a while to grow on me, and I'll tell you why. It's got that very, very 80s sound.
It does.
And for me, in 2011, and probably for most people, that's something that, it was a spot in time.
Right.
That you go back there, and I'm sure that during that time period, it just sounded normal, it was fine. Now, it kind of sticks out a little bit. It's kind of like, Kelsey and I watched Fletch the other day. You seen that movie with Chevy Chase? Great movie.
Right.
But the music comes on and it's, that kind of like sampled MIDI drum stuff, and you're like, and it sticks out to you. Well, it didn't at the time. It does now. That's just the way time rolls.
Right.
Anyways, onto the album. Once you get past that, you see that there's actually some very good songwriting here. And Kate Bush really, I think, is somewhat of a visionary of her time. Because, not only has she clearly influenced so many artists, I hear a lot of Bjork, even like more modern than Bjork, even like Bat for Lashes and Glasser.
Absolutely.
I feel like any
PJ Harvey.
Yeah, any female artist within that style is going to be influenced by Kate Bush in some way, because she wasn't afraid to get a lot of attitude and theatricality and just drama into her voice. And sometimes she's really kind of low and scary, and sometimes she's just shrill and just kind of abrasive, but it always works. Oh, crap. Forgot what I was going to say.
I'll jump in there.
Jump in.
So, I had a little bit more trouble getting into this album than you did.
Okay.
One thing that I really liked about it is just Kate Bush's vocals, which I thought was the predominant feature of this album, and what the entire focus of this album was more, it was one, vocals, and then secondary to that was songwriting. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that is the way it is. And the vocals, the weight was put on the vocals to make up or embody most of the structure and the essence of the song. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just then it's all about how good the vocal part is versus how not good it is. And I think that what that does is it leads to something, it leads to some tracks just clearly being better than others, which is something that I think is taking place on The Dreaming, is that I tended to love certain tracks and go on a lot of them. In fact, I not really hate any of them, but I just generally didn't get a kick out of tracks like track 9, Houdini, or even, I liked All of the Love, but Leave It Open was kind of,
I'd agree.
in the middle there for me. I loved the opener, Sat in Your Lap, and I loved track 10, Get Out of My House. I think that really Kate Bush did a great job of just showing off her vocal intensity there in ways that have set the stage for a lot of the music that I like now that have come out in the last decade, and that I've praised for doing stuff like that. Well, maybe they got a lot of their influence here. And really, and that's one thing that I've thought a lot about in just the general where music comes from, is that, you saw a lot in rock and roll, these heavy metal and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all these other bands came in the mid 70s that just dominated and put out these like really intense vocal parts, but you didn't see that in the poppier side of things as much. And then when you get this underground scene going in the 80s and a lot of the stuff that Peter Gabriel a lot of times will emote a lot in his voice, and Kate Bush, a similar style to what Peter Gabriel was doing at the time in The Dreaming, is also doing the same sort of emotion and just has this huge range where she's controlling the intensity of the sound with her voice, and I think that that's fantastic. It was a little hit or miss, personally for me.
Definitely. For with the songwriting, there are definitely standout tracks.
Right.
What I really like about this album, too, is the lyrics. The way they theme together within the songs. Now, I guess at the time, she was kind of like sitting around watching a lot of TV, got a lot of inspirations from these stories she was hearing. You get like track 3, Pull Out the Pin, which is about the Vietnam War from the eyes of the Viet Cong. And it's a very powerful song for that reason. I mean, when you get to those points where she just like screams, I love life, and it's just like blood curdling. It's one of those like spine tingling moments. Yep. And I love stuff like that when she puts more power into it. But there is a flip side to that, because moments like that where it works really well, and like Get Out of My House, which is inspired by The Shining, Stephen King's novel, the more powerful themes like that work better than some of these, which are just kind of blah. Like they don't carry, the themes don't carry as much weight, and because of that, the songs don't stick out as much. But overall, I mean, even the weaker tracks on here, they weren't terrible. They were listenable. I didn't want to skip them, and the standouts were really good. I think just overall, one thing that bothered me was the mixing at times.
I agree.
Sometimes the vocals were way too loud. There were spots where they just jump out at you, and it was kind of jarring, and not in the kind of jarring way that I like. It was just kind of out of place and odd and random. And that happened a decent amount, and it kind of irked me. But overall, I like the compositions. I like the sounds, and I mean, just Kate Bush, and she was like 23 or 24.
That's awesome.
When this album was released.
That's awesome. And she's still making music
Yeah,
today.
exactly, which is just great.
Yep. Overall, I think I'm going to give this a 75, Tom. As for the points that I said before, vocally, I just didn't attach to some of the tracks. I felt like the vocal presentation, not that any track was bad, it was just a little hit or miss. And then the music in general was just so, its intent was just so much on constantly changing, very, very artsy or avant-garde. And it's just, I don't think that's a drawback, but it just didn't engage me quite as much as I would have liked to have seen. But I do think that this overall is a really good, solid album, and I'm glad that I had the experience of listening to it. Where was your score?
I'm going to go 79.
79. So that gives us around a 77 for our VIMTV score, putting that in that really good recommended category. It's not what we call like an exemplary album or even an album that we love, which would be an 80s and 90s respectively. But still something that you should definitely check out if you haven't before, and we definitely appreciate your request, Ian. So thank you for requesting. Leave us a request at our website, www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. We love to get a music conversation going, so follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, check out Ian's Tumblr blog, Ian Barker at VIMTV, VIMTV.tumblr.com. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.